Hey guys, it's CoinFlipSci here for Card Runners. Today's video is going to be a hem review. Trying to get a nice mixture of interesting hands here. So yeah, without further ado, as you can see, 206 max game. I opened King 9 suited under the gun. This is definitely near the bottom of my opening range, if not at the bottom. But like, most importantly here, we have a fish in the small blind, which is why I've opened here. If you've got a fish in the blinds, opening a hand like King 9 suited under the gun, I think it's absolutely fine. Go ahead and open. We end up going heads up with a 29-21, good reg, ton of muns, and he checks to us on 4-5 queen. Yeah, I'm really happy with c-betting here. We have great backdoor equity, so we have some good barreling options. Also, I can see here 58% fold to c-bet, which is on the high side. So again, this definitely now makes it a c-bet for me. So we go ahead and c-bet our hand. We get called. 10 of spades on the turn. And yeah, it's checked to us. It's a great card, really. Gives us a ton more equity, as we have now a straight and flush draw to the effective nuts. And importantly, we can get him to fold out his 6-6 through 9-9, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8, and pocket nines. He's got some like 7-9 suited, 7-8 suited, 6-7 suited, A3 suited type hands. All of these hands, I think, are going to have to fold out when we bet this turn, and it make up a decent portion of his range. He does like to cold call quite a bit, so again, I definitely think those hands are in his range. Anitia, he's a 29 VPIP. Reg, say this guy over here, he's got a 22 VPIP. Not so sure I'd expect those hands too much in his range, but because we expect all those hands in his range, it then makes it a really profitable bet. Not to mention all the equity. I mean, having this equity alone is probably enough for us to bet, but the fact that we've got so many hands in his range to fold out that will fold out on this turn means for me it's a mandatory double barrel spot. So we go 18 to 25, pretty standard sizing. He makes the call. 9 of diamonds on the river. 9 hardly ever gives us the best hand. As I said on the turn, in these positions, I would expect him to fold out all his pairs between a 5 and a 10. So, yeah, so the 9 is kind of irrelevant. We don't really have showdown on a 9. I think, however, it is a good card for us to bluff. In this spot, I can have all the nutted king-jack combos and he can't because he doesn't call the flop with them, but I c-bet them. I also rep perfectly here, and I don't have too many air hands by the river. I think the other thing to note is I have probably a solid and quite nitty image to him, which works well in my favour. I guess considering all those factors, always, when you don't have a lot of showdown, it's always worth considering whether it's a good spot to bluff. And of course, as the factors I mentioned, I think it is a good spot for us to bluff. The thing here really is it's going to put a ton of pressure on all his Queen X. He can also have pocket jacks as well. I think he'll have to pretty much fold out all the combos that don't make 2-pair, and of those he can only really have a total of 3 combos of 2-pair, Queen 10 suited and Queen 9 suited that call pre. Obviously, if he has a set, we're going to get sapped off, but Queens might 3-bet pre, and then you've just left with 3 combos of 4s and 3 combos of 5s. So if we count the combos, then we can reasonably assume that he's going to fold out quite a lot here, unless he really fancies heroing us down with King Queen or Ace Jack Queen. But for the reasons I've mentioned, I just don't think he's going to. I think I just rep too well on this board, and I have too many value hands. And as I say, it's quite hard for us to have just air here, bar maybe like the hand we have, or possibly like Ace King of Spades or Ace 3 of Spades or something. Possibly a 6-7 suited. Either way, the hands I'm going to be bluffing are going to have equity, and this 9 certainly helps some of those. And not to mention all the the value hands that we just are barreling, that we've got, say aces, queens, all the sets and stuff, and all the 2-pairs. So for me, as I said before, definitely a bet. Go 42 and 61, reasonably sizable. If we go half pot or less here, we could run the risk of him feeling he's got a good price to call with his King Queen type hands. I mean, to be honest, he might just call us down with Ace Queen here, but as I say, he's got a bunch of other combos of Queen X that can fold, and Pocket Jacks, so he does fold anyway. So this hand, we're playing a 106 max game. There's an open under the gun by a 28-24 reg. Pretty standard reg. I decide to flat here with my Ace-King suited. I flat pre here sometimes, depending on the reg, and in this case, because importantly, Stevie O here is a pretty decent fish, 45-32. So that's certainly a deciding factor, as we don't want to price him out of the pot. I think in these spots, under the gun and +1, it's important to be able to mix up your frequencies between 3-betting and calling Ace-King. I feel like it can only be a good thing, because I think in terms of the EV of doing both, it's relatively neutral, I would say. But as I say, because this fish is here, and also a suited Ace-King does play well post-flop, certainly better than an offsuit Ace-King. So yeah, I'm super happy calling. And yeah, the fish comes along as well. So we end up going 3-way to the flop. He c-bets here. I mean, like, when he c-bets here, he pretty much always has an overbet here, or at least a lot of the time. Bear in mind, he's c-betting into us and the recreational player of the fish. So clearly his range is going to be stronger than if we were just heads up. And given the fact that we're in these positions as well, you can generally assert that a reg pretty much only c-bets, or maybe another suited Ace-King combo like Ace-King of Hearts, Ace-King of Diamonds. I mean, he could just c-bet all his Ace-Kings here. Some players certainly do. But for me, it's still completely a call, and I'll explain. I'll explain why. Basically, with position and a backdoor flush draw, we've got 2 nut overs blocking aces and kings. Despite this, for me, it's always a call here. We have position, we have a backdoor flush draw, we have 2 nut overs, which also block aces and kings, so it therefore makes our outs live. And it makes them relatively live, I suppose. And also importantly, my uncapped range on this board, because when we have all of our range is going to flat here, we pretty much don't have a raising range on this board. And with the fish here in particular, yeah, I'm going to be flatting all my hands, all my overpairs, any sets or whatever I might have. So my point is, with all these factors combined, I have a really good opportunity to win on later streets. Plus the fact we have the equity we have. So based on these factors, for me, always a call. Certainly. Comes a king on the turn, and he checks to us. This is a perfect turn. We have the best hand now a lot of the time. And so when he checks to me, while I could bet here for straight value, I kind of feel like my range wants to check here, as I have a ton of mid pairs that never bet here. So I feel like for the purposes of balance and protecting our checking range, it therefore makes sense to check back and evaluate river. So as I say, this hand, I suppose, really thinks about creatively playing our range. At this point, I could tell, as I say, pre-flop, we went for what could be a 3-bet, and we went for a call. And then this turn, as I say, we've decided to check back instead of betting for the reasons I just explained. 8 on the river, and yeah, he bets. I mean, when he goes half pot in this spot, his range seems pretty face up to me. Has weak value pretty much all the time. I imagine he would go bigger with the same hand. I also imagine he would go bigger if he could have bluffs. But as I say, like when he c-bets into us and a fish on the flop, he pretty much, he has an overpair here a lot of the time. And chances are, it's going to be when we have Ace-King ourselves, and the fact that he hasn't bet the turn, it's going to be pretty much always between 9s and queens here. The fact that he's actually bet, it probably indicates it's 10s, jacks, or queens pretty much always. So like, as I say, it's when he bets like this at half pot, it screams weak value. I suppose he could have some weaker kings like king, but it would have to be a hand with decent equity on the flop, like king, queen of diamonds, or king, queen of hearts, something like that. So there's not too many combos of that. So as I say, based on these things, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward race, to be honest. I went for 3x, just a little bit under 3x actually. In hindsight, maybe I could have gone a bit bigger with the sizing to rep my bluffs better. But as I say, because I know he has this range. I don't really want to get him to fold out his sort of jacks and queens and tens here. So we don't want to go too big here. But yeah, as I say, given the fact that I am kind of repping nonsense here, maybe it would be a bit better for me to go bigger. But as I say, I kind of want to just a call. And like 3x is just standard. So I suppose in that sense, it's being a bit more balanced with our range here. And yeah, he does call with jacks, so the hand worked out quite nicely. And as I say, like if I'd bet the turn, there's a good chance he would have followed the river with that one. Or he might have called us down, we would have won a similar pot. But I think more importantly, as I say, it's just about balancing our range in these spots. If we check back here, we don't always want to check back those sort of 7s through 9s or whatever, because that's what I meant when I said our range wants to check back here. We want to rep the weaker parts of our range as much as we can. As much as we can as a poker player to keep our opponents guessing and maximising, therefore, the money we can make hand for hand. So this hand really focuses on sizings. As you'll see, we're playing a 206 max game. There's a limp by a fish who's running 48.9. Seems really passive. But yes, quite loose at 48 VPIP. Folds around to us. Yeah, make a stand of 4x. In hindsight, given the stack depths, I could definitely go bigger here, and the fact that I'm out of position. This is going to be my standard ISO versus most players in position. But out of position, we could have gone to maybe $9 or $10, but it's obviously absolutely fine. He calls. It comes 9-3-6. So yeah, obviously it's a good flop. C-bet, and we get raised. Off my sample, I've got a bit of 12% flop raise, which, given that he's a 48 VPIP, means it's a reasonably wide range, but he's not super crazy or loose here. Now, obviously, our option here is clearly not folding. It's, can we 3-bet this flop, or is it better calling? I mean, we definitely could 3-bet this flop, as fish tend to overplay top pair in these spots, but it's just not a great spot if we get stacks in on the flop here. So I guess I'm just fine with just calling here and evaluating a later street. It's worth noting though, if he has, say, 75 big blinds or less, I would definitely 3-bet here, because I'm super happy getting all our money in on this flop with aces versus that stack size. But for 100 BB, I think either or are okay. But as I say, I've opted for call here. It's because it's a min raise that I would like to 3-bet, because it tends to be weaker. 4 hearts on the turn. We checked him and allow him to bet. As I say, we're now evaluating what's going on, and based on his sizings, I'll decide whether to call or raise. He bets 10, which is obviously super, super small. Generally, when a fish bets this sizing, we pretty much know he doesn't have a set, as fish tend to nearly always go bigger and strong, with strong value hands here. It's, as I say, now a good spot, I would say, to raise and get value from all his 9x, his 6x, or whatever hand he can have. There's also a lot of turn draws that he can have. So, given that the turn does give him a lot of straight, and it's not just the flush draws, it's the straight draws as well. This turn also gives him a bunch of straight draw options and flush draw options. So, the thing is, as long as I go a reasonably decent sizing without going super big, I don't ever expect him to fold those hands either. All is sort of 5, all is 5x, all is sort of 8x of hearts, 8, 10 of hearts, 7, 10 of hearts, etc. All those hands are now, that could have raised the flop and are sort of betting the turn. Well, there's obviously not a lot of logic in fish's plays from fish, so but the point being is that he definitely has like some straight and flush draws in his range, which is good, so we can now get extra value from those by making a raise. As again, with my sizing, I've just gone over 3x. I don't want to still don't want to be going super crazy here, and I definitely want him calling all his 6 and 9x. We don't want to price him out too much, but with the drawy turn, I guess I could have gone a little bit bigger, because I don't really expect him to fold those too often. But yeah, I think it's fine. He calls. It's a deuce of diamonds on the river. As I said before, he definitely has like a bunch of 5s in his range. He's a fish. He can have 6-5 here. He could have 9-5. He could have pocket 5s here. He could have 3-5. Unlikely to have 5-7, because I imagine he would go bigger on the turn and perhaps 3-bet my turn raise. So, but we're not ruling out any fives here. I mean, he could also still have a set here, but these all just seem pretty unlikely. Regardless, for me, this is just a mandatory value bet. However, given the board texture and the fact that we do still have one pair on this board, and given the fact that there's been a flop raise and a check raise on the turn, we have to tread with a little bit of caution, even against our friend, our recreational player here. So the bet for me is 50 into 126. Again, at the moment, we're just basically just targeting all of his 9x, his 6x's. I mean, he could even have like pocket 10s, jacks, 7s, 8s. We don't know what he's capable of limping. So we're targeting all those one pair hands, strong or weak, because we beat all of them. So for that reason, we don't want to go too crazy and like shove or make a committing bet. This bet's nice because he's not going to fold all those hands, and given the fact that he's passive, he's got a 23% aggression frequency on the river. It's actually a spot where I would have to bet fold. As much as I would hate it, it is certainly a spot where we need to bet fold. And I feel that if we go 70 or 80, we're just going to be so pot committed, and it's going to be really hard for us to fold. But by going to sizing, we now achieve the fact that he's going to call with the weakest parts of his range, which we want to, and we can still fold out to a shove, which, if I think a player as passive this, is only really ever going to shove better. And to this sizing, as I say, he's just going to call with all his one pair hands, and shove hands that beat us, really. And yeah, he has no hesitation in calling with Jack 9 of hearts. A little bit frustrating in a way, because I say, with the heart draw as well, we could have gone bigger on the turn and got a bit more value, but I'm still happy with the amount we made overall. This hand is interesting. It's I guess it really focuses on the dynamic when you have a reg and a fish in the pot, with yourself as well. So we get a limp here from MP from 55-20 fish. He's a whale. He's pretty aggressive as well. So yeah, this is the important part. This has got a good reg here running 26-19, and he makes it 3.6x out of the small. Now, if he'd gone bigger with his sizing here, for me, Queen Jack off is a fold. But like for this sizing, we're getting a good price with 2.6 BBs to call, and we've still got a 50 BB fish behind here. So yeah, simple call for me. Based on that, as I say, if he'd gone over 4x here, I think this one's a fold, and obviously call our suited ones. Fish calls come Jack 6 deuce, and Pete C bets into both of us. Nothing more to say here, just easy call versus the sizing. Recreational player comes along as well. 4 on the turn, and Pete bets again. So now he's gone half pot. Again, it's pretty small sizing. I guess this is where it gets really interesting. In essence, we are certainly ahead of the fish's range, but at this point, I would say we're probably losing to Pete. However, well, I'll explain that point as well. If he's betting into 2 players out of position, double barreling here, with a board that has no draws, he has 0 bluffs here, like literally 0. He has to have pretty much my hand plus in terms of his value range. So, to put it into simpler terms, my intention here wasn't to call to take my showdown on the river, because I feel like, as I say, his range is just too strong when he bets into both of us. Although the fact he's gone smaller sizing makes me like the spot more. The thing is, Pete knows that I will always flat all of my nutted hands on the turn here. Partly because that's kind of the game I tend to play, but most importantly because this recreational player here is behind us, so we want to keep him in as much as possible. This is where our money is made through these type of players. So it makes perfect sense to just flat all of my range here. And given how few sort of draws and drawy hands are on this board, it makes sense for us to to call and see if we can win on the river. The other important thing to note here, we've got a blocker to top set. and also our stacks are really deep with Pete. So these are both, important things. In summary, I think we're just going to have a good chance to win on the river, considering most of his range is made up of overpairs, which are going to be super scared of my uncapped range, which contains 0 draws or air on the river. But still, cool. Based on all those factors, all these things were really going through my head. As I say, I'm not calling the turn because I think I'm ahead of his range. It's because, again, I'm thinking ahead and thinking because what my range looks like and what his range is likely on this board. And the stack depths as well. All factors to consider for our play on the river. So when he checks to us, I feel like this is where my plan can come into action. I think importantly we rep a lot better than he. Well, I say a lot better. We certainly rep better than he does on this board. He knows if I have like queens here, I will probably just check back and take my showdown. He knows if I have ace jack here, I'll probably take my showdown here. So he's probably quite happy maybe chat folding like queens or kings. He feels that those hands are probably maybe too thin to go for value. Well, as ridiculous as it seems, but because of this recreational player and because of the dynamic of this hand, it is probably too thin because I'm going to have a hard time calling with that. As I said before, I wasn't calling the turn I had top pair against him here, and I wasn't feeling comfortable. So let alone calling a river bet with a hand like this or a hand like ace jack for 3 streets. So as I said, I think we do rep better than he does on this board. Most players, including myself, ISO very nitty out of the small blind. So there's a good chance he doesn't ISO pocket 2s or possibly even pocket 6, which I will always call his raise with, especially given his sizing. I can also have a combo of 6-4 suited and possibly even 4 combos of 5-3 suited, which he pretty much, again, never ISOs either. So, as I said on the turn, to be bluffing here, I pretty much have to have, pretty much have to have turned Jack X into a bluff. I suppose I could have 6-5 suited, but I could have 5-6 suited, I suppose. But I think having the Jack blocker is better in this spot than having a 6 blocker, because as I say, it might be irrelevant if he doesn't ISO pocket 6s out of small. So I can't float or call any worse hands on the turn with efficiency still in the pot. So, because I don't have any draws, because I don't have any floats, etc., like, I must be right at the bottom of my range here. And then for me to now bluff this river, I have to have then turned the Jack X into a bluff. And it's a pretty hard assumption to make, considering most players at 100 would take their showdown with a Jack here. The other thing to note is, he is a very good player. Certainly, certainly easily top 5 at this stake. So he's capable of making a big fold here. It's always important that you know the player's capable of making a good fold here. So with all this in mind, I turn my hand into a bluff with a pretty substantial bet. It's a weird spot because I don't rep that many combos, but I just have to have it here. That's what it comes down to ultimately. And he does make the fold. He's actually a friend of mine, and he folded ace jack, which is what I was hoping for. It was a good result in the end. So this hand, playing a 206 max game. There's an open on the bottom from a very aggressive winning reg. We're going ahead and 3-bet here. It's a standard 3-bet in a small blind with our linear 3-betting strategy here. My standard sizing versus a min, 8x out of position. Some players like to go a bit smaller, but that's the sizing I keep consistent, and I like it that way. He makes the call when it comes to deuce 5-7. It's a great flop for a hand in essence. I decide to go ahead and check, with obviously the intention of check calling instead of c-bet, as I feel like a player like this is going to stab a lot on this flop, and our hand doesn't need a huge amount of protecting. I guess, obviously any overcard's going to put us in trouble, but the lack of sort of definitive straight draws in this, there's obviously straight draws in this flop, but like a 6, a 3 and a 4 aren't the worst cards. They're pretty decent cards still, so it doesn't need actually that much protecting. even though we just do have just pocket eights on this board. And I think, as always, it's just a good spot to keep our checking range balanced too. So he does stab, and I say we check call versus this half pot sizing. Jack on the turn, continuing our flop line, we checked him on the turn. Versus this villain, definitely happy to call another bet on this card, but yeah, he does opt to check back. Bearing in mind when he checks back this turn, with pocket eights, we've probably got to be very confident we've got the best hand. He can have 9s on 10s, but I expect him to bet all of his Jack X and obviously like sets, or potentially like a Queens, Kings, or Aces that he's kind of sneakily flatted pre. But yeah, as I say, when he checks back this turn, I'm very confident got the best hand. Queen here, I mean, this is not the best card. We check again here. I mean, again, there's literally no sense in betting here. It's too merged between value and, well, it would be a value bet, but it's unlikely he's going to call worse here. And yeah, it just makes sense for us to check, as we should do with most of our range in this spot. He goes and makes a $42 bet, and it's standard sizing, over half pot, but under 3/4 pot, somewhere in the middle. And it's a really sick spot because he reps the queen so well. But the thing is, he knows this. I'm pretty confident that a player like this would bet queen jack on the turn. So, based on that, he's more likely to have some queen 10 suited or queen 9 suited combos. But both of the heart combos of those bet on the turn, definitely. So, in terms of the combos we lose to, he has all the king-queen combos. Yeah, there's quite a few of those. That sucks. His ace-queen combos might opt to check back the flop rather than stab, due to its showdown value. It would make quite a lot of sense to check back ace-queen here, because if you stab ace-queen on a flop like this, you're merging your range quite a lot between sort of bluffs or value, because I can check call worse. I'm unlikely to ever check fold better. So, you know, like I would never check fold ace king on this flop. So yeah, it does make good sense for us to it does make good sense for him to check back ace queen on the flop, and I probably would, depending on someone's stats, etc. So yeah, based on that, say it's just those few combos of queen 10 suited and queen 9 suited and all the king queen combos, and we make some assumptions about the queen jacks and ace queens that are possible, that we don't think are possible. Thing is, I almost feel in the way it's a good card in a way, because as I say, he's super aggressive, and I think he's going to stab his bluffs with a high frequency on this river. That I think it's a call, despite the fact he has a bunch of queen x combos in his range. Bear in mind the fact he's going to be stabbing the flop with just like a bunch of like suited ace x. You know, hands like 9-10 suited. He could have like king 9, king 10. There are just so many like air hands that he has, and as I say, because he knows there's a good bluff card, in a way I kind of feel like it's a good card for us to call down on, because if he bets like a random, like, I don't know, 6 or a 10, like, it puts us in a pretty tricky spot because we don't expect him to bluff that card, whereas this one, although he knows it's a good bluff card because he reps well on it, but on the same page, you know, he's going to bluff at it. And bear in mind, this guy's got a 48 $1 when sold flop when he's at 27-21. He's aggressive. He's very, very aggressive. So, you know, you can pretty much assume that he's going to be bluffing this river with certainly a much higher frequency than most, despite the fact that he has a lot of queen combos. Also, looking here, he's got a 46%. Fold to 3-bet. So again, really low fold to 3-bet. So this again, you can get a better idea of his range. He's going to have a lot more weaker holdings that don't contain queens here, that are very incentivized to bluff here. So on all these bases, you know, we do decide to call. Another point noting, actually, if we had check call the flop with a hand like, say, ace jack, in actual fact, it's pretty much the same hand as having a queen. Because, like, if I got ace jack here, I'm just going to snap the river and not really think about it. But in reality, ace jack's pretty similar to pocket eights here. As I said before, I feel like a player like this will always bet his jack x on the turn. So having a jack here is effectively like having pocket eights. It's effectively the same hand. So because I would snap like a jack here, I feel like eights has got to be a call as well. And yeah, he does have ace 10 suited. Definitely can see why he stabbed there, but you can see because he's got all his backdoor equity, and he's got like a decent pair to hit as well. But again, it's kind of like one of those semi-merge. Ace queens are far more of a merge because of the hands I can check call with. But yeah. And that's all I got time for today in this two-part video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.